American University in Bulgaria.
So I'll talk about advanced human-computer interactions in augmented environments. Maybe it's not clear from the title, but I hope it will become clearer on the way. Computers, computer world and human world, what are those two things? Look at the picture on the left. This is an IBM mainframe like half a century ago. And on the right, you see a computer farm, which is like an environment dedicated to computers. This guy there is doing some maintenance. It's definitely not his world. He's standing and he's doing something and just helping those computers to help us, to service us. But computers nowadays, they've changed. Actually, we never go to those computer rooms and do anything. Here is your window to the computer world. This is your notebook, right? Maybe you don't even need your notebook. Maybe my old iPhone. Okay, I have this just for Bulgaria. I have a newer one. Just the SIM card is too small and I couldn't get the right one. So anyway, this is basically what we use to get to the computer world. And on the right side, you see that old Japanese lady. She's buying a ticket. That's the way you get your ticket in Japan. And this is a ticket vending machine. And there is somebody there. I'll explain in a little while, but let me just show you the next slide. So human-computer interactions, this is about everything. Everything we do. Now it comes down to human-computer interactions because everything is computerized. So e-businesses, e-services. So we have basically to deal with some access to the world of computing. Even if you go to a regular shop, it's already e-business. Those things are integrated. So you go there, you pay by a debit card or a credit card. It's e-transaction already. So if you want to use a discount coupon, okay, maybe you'll get it in your like old-fashioned way, printed in your mailbox, but I would rather just get it on my iPhone screen and get it scanned. So you can download those coupons. So normal businesses, shops, they have their online presence and everything is integrated. So e-services, they're penetrating and everywhere in our world. And we do use them and we cannot possibly avoid them. But some people, like that old lady here, she needs help. So there is some computer which is selling tickets and she needs help. And here is what she wants to have. Somebody helping her. This is not real. This guy is not there. But that's the way she wants somebody to show up and to push the buttons for her and get her the ticket. She wants to see the old-fashioned guy there behind the counter. But there is no counter already, just machines. So how can we help? Can we make people feel as if they interact with computers the way they used to interact with under normal circumstances in our traditional world? So human-computer interactions and some magic change the way we use computers, change it in such a way so that we don't feel uncomfortable. We don't have to develop like special skills, or at least make this learning curve more efficient. So this presentation is about some ideas how to enhance and optimize things. So key idea, try to explore some natural interactions. Well, natural interactions. Voice. Well, it works sometimes, sometimes it doesn't. So you have Siri in your computer, iPhone, and things like that. But it's not just about voice communication. Yes, we speak to each other, but we also do many other things. So we touch, we move, we point. Voice communication is very limited, actually, the voice channel. So most of the information about the surrounding world we get through our eyes. So we have to think and change things. Here is an example of this integrated computer-human world. You see, you just can use one simple device, or how simple I don't know, but just an Android-based mobile phone to control everything. So you have all this electric equipment. It's basically online. So this is not fiction. Like you can turn on and off the lighting, and you can control it, dim it. The Roomba vacuum machine, a lot of information online, and people are actually playing with it and developing software to control and things like that. Your fridge, refrigerator. Well, would you like to use your iPhone as a remote controller for your fridge? Or maybe hard to imagine. So if I am trying to convince you to use your cell phone as a remote control for your TV set, or instead of remote control, the standard remote control of your TV set, that's maybe easy to accept and assimilate, but how and why would you need to control your fridge with your iPhone or whatever? Well, actually, who knows better about your feeding or consumption habits than your fridge? So every time you open it, you interact with it, and then you provide some information. So you stock something, then you take little by little, consume, so then you need to restock. Maybe your fridge can place the order, maybe there'll be a screen, or so there are plenty of opportunities to optimize and to integrate that. And you don't even have to know about it, and you don't have to actually take conscious actions in order to control it. So in this integrated computer-human world, everything is, how to say, computerized, and you have to somehow provide information about what's necessary and what's coming next. So this is already happening. In Japan, the guy on the picture on the left, he has all his wiring and gadgets embedded or integrated in his jacket. I don't have anything here, but he has a lot of stuff. And what kind of stuff? Well, just go online and you can probably look it up. That's nice. It's for fun. But look at the officer in the middle. This guy knows everything about you. He has probably the, well, equivalent or better version of Google Glasses. And the moment he sees you, your background check is done, and then all your record and everything is there. And this is a solution provided by Motorola. We just don't know it, we don't see it. Military, I guess they are very well equipped. So we're talking about augmented humans. Coming soon or already there, we just don't know. It's scary, isn't it? And then next step, well, I would say augmented computers, or call them robots or whatever, and then where is the place for humans? Probably this is coming, hopefully not so soon. Something is coming where maybe everything will be artificial and robots, and I don't know where we go with that. So, advanced human-computer interactions. So we try to control all this kind of gadgets or enhancements in this augmented world by different kind of employing different kind of interaction paradigms. For example, on the left side here, you can see somebody who has a camera and a projector, and he is manipulating some image which is nowhere. So actually, that image can be projected on a wall in front of the person or in the thin air. It's just a matter of what kind of technology I'm going to use, projector. And the camera is actually just tracking the markers here on his fingers. And that's the way actually to control interact with the projected image, which can be blended in our three-dimensional world, if it's done in a clever enough way. On the right side, you can see an interaction table. So it's touch sensitive, based on a camera below the surface. And you have different objects on the surface of that table that are tractable, so you can recognize positions, orientations, arrangement of those objects on the surface, and you can manipulate them, and that will be used as an interface component in order to elucidate some reactions from the environment. So, augmented environment. So, how well these different computing gadgets integrate in our environment, in our human world. So, we do interact with the world around us. So, mostly we look at things, we instantly recognize, we recognize faces, we touch, we count on our feelings. We want to have physical objects and to manipulate them. And when it comes to something that's in the computer world and only there and it's behind the screen, then it becomes difficult to bring together the physical and the virtual. So the idea is to employ physical objects, things that are around us, as interface components. And by enabling our computers to track and reliably recognize what's around us in a camera view or something, then we can reflect all manipulations we do, we apply to physical objects in our world and reflect them into the virtual world. And that world is much more flexible, and you can do many things that are not possible in our physical world. So let's see how this can be done. Let's try to think about richer, to enrich this interfacing functionalities. widely spread mobile computing devices. They have touch screens, digital cameras, a lot of functionality there. So they can sense positions. Here, there are specialized devices that are meant to be used as interface components to play games, for example, like Sony and Nintendo, Sony PlayStation, Nintendo. They have the gyros, they have all these things. So you can track motions and things like that. You can do this kind of things with a simple iPhone or Android device. Actually, you have like 9 axis, 9 degree of freedom. So we only need 6 degree of freedom, basically, right, to determine position and orientation of a physical object in our three-dimensional world. But here this device has like 9 degrees of freedom. So we have something like more than we really need to do like elemental 3D manipulations. So using physical objects as interface components, it's about manipulating things and getting meaningful reactions from the devices that are involved. So you have a digital camera, which is very advanced. Cameras outperforming our vision capabilities, our eyes. And yet you cannot just show something to that camera and expect meaningful reaction. So if you get a CD or a DVD jacket or a book, you can take a picture and go online and you'll get comparison of all shops that sell that product. Well, that's a fairly easy task. It's a two-dimensional printed material, and if you pre-register it, then it works. When you try to do similar things with three-dimensional objects, nothing works. And there are fundamental difficulties, and my expectation is that nothing or very little will change in the near future. So one company, this is just an example, like maybe 2 years ago, they launched this application and they claimed that, yes, they start with shoes and jewelry, but then everything will work like a snap, and nothing worked, and they are out of business. They didn't keep their promises. So, very, very simple task. You want to get a comparison of different types of shoes, and it's impossible actually to do meaningful recognition of those kind of objects because of many fundamental difficulties. Like it's a three-dimensional object, and depending on the angle and everything changes. It's not like a fixed shape and based on what similarity. So it's quite complicated. So what kind of practical solutions can be actually considered? So to make computers understand, because that's what we want to basically achieve. That's the way we think. So, I show you something and you immediately understand. So we can discuss it. But showing it to a computer, so it technically means taking a picture of it by a computer camera, brings you nothing. So artificial intelligence, it was about to happen like 50 years ago, and it's still about to happen now. And I guess in the next 50 years, well, it will be happening. So instead of trying to solve the fundamental problems, which seems to be extremely difficult. Is it possible to help computers to do something so that computers don't have to solve difficult problems or like count on some high intelligence? Just computers, they find the answer in some magic way. So, to help computers to digitally enhance, the idea is to enhance digitally surrounding objects in such a way so that they look the same for us, but for computers they look different. So when I see a physical object, I don't notice any difference. It's the same object I use in my everyday life. But when I show to a computer a camera, the computer can instantly read some code that tells the computer everything about that object. So it's just a matter of technicalities, how to implement this kind of approach. And I think we found some interesting ways to implement. So this is not new, because look, practical solutions. So you use your credit card, you approach it to bring it into the vicinity of the terminal, and it's scanned, and that's it. So that's digital communication. So the code is there, it's wireless. Well, there are difficulties because they are just proximity. The terminal doesn't know anything about how the card is oriented or what's printed on the card, or is it a real card, or is it just the chip or something fake. So, but practical solutions like that, they're all around us. So, using physical objects like interface components, that's quite common practice. Actually, in every shop you go and you buy something, it's just scanned. And there is a barcode, and that barcode actually helps the cash register computer identify the product. We don't have to go away to seek a solution. Solutions are already around here. So maybe similar approach. Here are the barcodes, and those barcodes been around for tens and tens of years. And there are so many of them, and yeah, they work. They work, but their functionality is very limited. So what we do, we tag products, and there are a few digits or maybe letters, maybe longer encoding strings. The point is that those barcodes, they change the appearance of the product. So just one tag is fine, but if you want to have your product digitally encoded with a lot of information, good for each and every situation, that becomes problematic. So we have to look for some more advanced solutions. And watermarking is one of those approaches where the code is actually blended, embedded into the object, and it's not, doesn't stand out, it's not even noticeable or visible. It's hidden somehow. So digital watermarking, that's one possibility. This is the standard approach, how it works. So for those who are interested, maybe you just go online. There are even more advanced ways to approach this. For example, data glyphs, Xerox idea. This is just enlarged, zoomed version of what is there around the eye. And this is actually decoded information. Of course, shapes are distorted there. You have to introduce different levels of gray. But yeah, this one way. And you can use also dot-based codes and things like that. So there are many possibilities and approaches that work up to a certain extent. But they are not perfect, and all these limitations, they somehow limit the implementation possibilities. So barcodes, they're usually confined to specific areas, and you need to extract them like units. Watermarks, carpet codes, they surface codes, so they can be processed through partial view. So you don't need access to the entire code. So surface codes are probably a better way to try to handle this kind of thing. So if you use some kind of surface code, that surface code can be anywhere or everywhere. So this kind of surface codes, they can be on a micro scale, so something which is so small that you don't see it. That's one way to hide it. And you may have on a macro scale, like imagine in this room. So if you want something like encoded on the walls, well, you can just use wallpaper, beautiful flowers or something. So you don't have to hide the code. You can have it well visible, like a well-designed, beautiful interior pattern. So we've played or explored both possibilities. This is one of the methods that we started with. It's basically dot-based code. It's a cluster pattern interface code where you have like clusters of dot-shaped components. And it can be designed as a separate layer which is blended into anything. Like this is a label of a bottle with a drink, some non-alcoholic drink. And when the code is superimposed and integrated with the label, here is what you get, and it's practically invisible. This is just enlarged in order to demonstrate how it looks like. But when at normal zoom, then it's practically invisible. And then once you have this, the entire surface of the label digitally enhanced with this code embedded, then you can get access to different information depending on how you position and orient the camera. So then you can have many different links associated with different parts, different areas on the label. Like this is the way you actually interact with the label, and here you have different links. Like areas, they are not well specified here, but if you click somewhere in the vicinity of this phone number, click, I mean, you take your cell phone and you take a picture of something here, this area. And then the phone will be dialed. Because that's what the code says. Dial this number. And if you click here, around here, a song will be played. Again, the song is not even in your cell phone, it's online. It just says, go to this URL address and show what's there, and it's a song, okay? So then you can associate, technically speaking, whatever you want with any area, and it can be differently shaped, it can be organized the way you want. You're not confined or restrained by anything. And when it comes to processing this, so there is nothing complicated to do. You don't have the computer or the software you write doesn't have to know what's there and what label. It's just the code, and the code tells you everything. Direct instructions, URL address or whatever. So, and everything becomes possible because you have two different layers. One is what you see, the label, and that's meant for humans. Beautiful printed label, and we read or whatever we want to do with it. And when you use a digital device with computing capabilities and a camera, it sees something entirely different. And there you can link them together in order to evoke certain functionality. And that functionality is embedded in the digital layer. And if it's synced with the human-oriented layer, then things, they blend together and work smoothly together. And there is no need to do any advanced image analysis and recognition. So, when it comes to technical details, how can we actually blend this kind of digital codes within the surfaces of natural objects? So there are different technologies. One of the technologies we use actually is laser marking or encoding or engraving. So it turns out that most of the objects we deal with, they are, well, they look like non-transparent, but if you change the spectrum a little bit, so go to infrared or to ultraviolet, depending on the material, they become suddenly semi-transparent. So semi-transparent things, so you can see a little bit in depth. So then you can impose this digital layer under the surface. So it becomes very well protected. It's not visible because in the normal lighting and our eyes, we don't see it. But when you use a camera, then you can see the code. And then everything can be pre-encoded and prefabricated, like this table can be digitally encoded. And then if there is a camera or I use some device, then it becomes a tablet with absolute positioning and tracking functionality. And also, of course, you can extract in orientation and things like that. So this is one of the things. And we've done some tests, and actually we have the lasers, we have everything at my institute, and we played with like a bottle with glue and a screwdriver handle. So we did encode, and we did extract the code, and that's the way it looks like on the two snapshots on the right. And then, of course, there are technicalities, so we try with different arrangements and try to optimize the encoding paths and things like that. So these are details. Maybe I'm not going to explain, but for those who are interested, I'll show in the end of this presentation. I have a lot of papers on my site. So it's interesting, actually, here. In one direction, like horizontally, you can have a linear motion, constant speed, and if you superimpose some oscillation in y direction, then that's what happens. Like it's like a sine wave, and you only encode at the peaks, and then that becomes very efficient. For larger size or macro codes, we played with wallpaper. So wallpaper is like a large A0 size printer, and then we create some interior so that mobile robots and like camera-enabled gadgets can actually position themselves in respect to the wall. So it's something much more precise and much more reliable than GPS, especially indoors, because you don't get a good GPS signal, if any, indoors. So here is an example of something encoded. Encoding is based on orientations. So this is very rough and artificial example, but depending on by slightly rotating the objects, then you can encode some digital information, and based on that, you can extract absolute positions and orientation. So it's a fairly advanced method based on like bit sequences with special properties. generated by special polynomials. So maybe if you look into my papers, you'll see how this actually works. It's not new, but it's redesigned for applicability here. Another way that we do this kind of things is by direct fabrication of three-dimensional objects. So actually, one can use a three-dimensional printer to print something, and that something can be in the process of printing can be digitally enhanced or enabled, so you can have the code on the surfaces, so special pattern. So we tried with different 3D printers, and I've printed something which is like this. This is the object. This is the small version of it. This is three-dimensional Japanese character. So this is actually a different project, but it's an interesting idea. So letters from the alphabet, they're flat. It's writing. But and letters, they don't have like meaning. It's just alphabet. So in Japanese language, characters, they do have meaning. So they are derived from some ideas, notions, physical objects around us. So then can we have those, so essentially three-dimensional things? So then can we bring those written characters, which are essentially flat, back to the three-dimensional world? And then it turns out we can, and then it becomes very attractive and useful, because if you have something tangible like this to play with it, and so it's like, okay, this is like this. Okay, I'll show you this. These components of a kanji characters, and they can come together, but these don't come together because the code is different. So this is not a valid combination, but this is a valid combination, okay? What means like alt 3 or something. And this one is flat, like domino, and this is like 2.5D version of this. And when children play with this, they use more of their senses, so they have something in their hands. It's not just sitting and writing. It's fully fleshed interaction with three-dimensional objects. So it creates more links or connections in your mind. So it's easier to remember. So that's why you remember better me by seeing me physically here, rather than watching a video or just listening to this presentation. So it looks like this is very useful. So to have these three-dimensional tangible components that we use for teaching, interactions, and things like that. And those components, so then here you see three-dimensional kanji characters or objects, and they here, like this says post office, Yubinkyoku. And it's beautiful, and it's hard to imagine how to do it with like an alphabet-based language, like English, right? Because how do you make these characters three-dimensional? If you make them three-dimensional, then what's the point, and how much do they actually enhance anything, this or anything, if any? So here are other examples, like jewelry based on three-dimensional characters and stuff like that. And this is the learning scheme. So we bring together the two-dimensional flat cards with character recognition and augmented reality. So this is actually in the virtual part of the world, and you can see it on the screen or through three-dimensional glasses. So when you bring two kanji components together, they form a character which is different shape and size, and they blend or integrate. And this is the encoding scheme, so this simple example. We enhanced with digital codes and multi-layer digital codes and things like that. So, simple samples of interactions. I wanted to speak about this multi-resolution markers and codes and the progress we made with the encoding, but I think we're running out of time, so I'll probably skip this part, which is, I believe, worth presenting, but yeah, given the shortage of time. So just to give you an idea why this is considered to be important, if you have some markers, some digital code that is extractable and retractable in this three-dimensional physical world, so you can do many different things. So you can superimpose something on this code just because you can track it and recognize it. You can superimpose something virtual that's non-existent in our world, and it will stick to this code and to the place, and then when you change the view, it will change accordingly. So then once you start zooming, you want to explore this object in detail, here is what happens, and more detail. But if you see it in this detail, then you can see only a very, very small fraction of the entire code, only this. And here, this small fraction is something like here. So then we end up with the need of special codes that are self-replicating. So you go in depth, and then you still see the code and you can still extract the necessary information. So it's something like a fractal property that you have to introduce. And people have tried different things like this, and even like this, but it's not really so promising. So there are limitations, and you end up with collisions and things like that. And this is the basic idea of the multi-layer code. So what we do, or where we started, is like the basic idea. And I'll stop here, so just finishing this. If you have some code, like this, just one square, and you divide by 4, and you encode, so you can encode 4 bits. Like white or black, that's 1 bit, so you have 4 bits. One way is to go like as on the top line, so subdivide into 4, you encode 4 bits, and then subdivide again into 4, you'll have 16 bits. So you have either 4 bits, either 16 bits, either 64 bits, depending on the subdivision you employ. But you can do differently. You can do like this. So subdivide into 4, encode 4 bits, keep those 4 bits, and then subdivide each area into 4 again, and you'll have 16 bits here, right? 16 bits. But these 4 bits, they stay. So what's the difference? The difference is that you just inverse. You inverse. And then suddenly you have like 4 bits plus 16 bits plus 64 bits, while here you only have either 4, either 16, either 64. They don't cumulate, right? So it's too good to be true, and it actually doesn't work so well, but that's the starting point. Once you notice this, then suddenly very interesting combinations become possible. So that's where we started, and we've been thinking about actually applying for a patent. So it's not decided. We'll see. And I'll stop here, I guess. So thank you very much for your attention. If we still have time, maybe questions or. Yes?
The cluster pattern interface?
Yes.
You said that it's possible to have like, take a picture and have the information that's encoded there act as a reference marker to the, like a link?
Yes. Yes.
Is it possible to have enough storage there for like the actual song, for instance, or is that too much information?
Okay, so now that's actually a great question. I always get this question, and that's the question I never actually answer directly for a reason. So, why would you need to store all this information there? I have my cell phone, okay? So, and all the information I can get, it's online. Capacity of this device is limited. So the best thing for this is that I can always get it online. So I only need the reference. That's the basic idea. So then imagine you have a book. You have a book. And you're reading this book, and suddenly you want to translate a word. You have a new word. You want to see it translated into your own language. And it's a book, somewhere, it's a word somewhere in this book, and if you point this word to me and say, what is this? I'll immediately give you an answer, right? Suppose I speak your language. So, now you have your computer device here, and you can show the word to this device. You just take a picture of the word, right? Nothing happens. First thing, how to identify the word, right? Because there are so many words around, and maybe the font is wrong, or maybe OCR doesn't work, and things like that. But imagine you have the book in PDF. Every book which is printed now, it's digital somewhere there. So then, if you can tell me, I'm the device, okay? If you can tell me, give me the word on book A. What book? That's the ID of the book. I only need the ISBN number, right? So if the ISBN number is encoded there, and if the position is encoded there, position means, you know how books are printed? Roll paper. So then position of a word is very well defined by two coordinates. What page, basically, and where on the page. So it's like the roll, you have just X and Y, and that's all you need. So then, by extracting from the code only two coordinates and the code which identifies the book, you have everything you would ever need, okay? And then the beauty is that by turning this device in different angles in respect to the page, you can send different signals. So I want it in German, I want it in French, I want it in Japanese. You don't need buttons, you don't need complicated controls. So minimize effort. Encode what you absolutely need and you cannot possibly go without. And everything else, oh, it's available somewhere, who cares? And we're always online, right? So this is probably the best answer I can give to your questions. Thank you for asking. Any other questions? Yes?
What are current applications of augmented reality, actually, which we can observe nowadays?
Okay, so everything here, this wasn't very well focused and explained probably, but take Google Glasses. So this is just a technology that allows you to, to superimpose the digital presented in front of you with the real world. So you are seeing through the glasses and you can have something superimposed. So then fundamental issue, fundamental problem is to keep things synchronized. When you move you gaze, then digital and virtual, they should stay synced. So what I want to have is like, I am looking at you, and I see everything through my glasses slightly better because I have special lenses, right? But if this were Google Glass, I would see many things, like next to your face, maybe some text, maybe I see you like 10 years ago. You see? Like I can magically go back and front in time, I can get different, put you in different perspective, but that has to be synced. So then, these glasses, how do they know when I move? You see, the view changes. And if you are tractable, so face recognition, so then that would work, but that doesn't work with computers because without, how to say, artificial intelligence, it doesn't work. So then, in order to keep the digital and the virtual synchronized, that's about the best way I can suggest. Embedding specialized digital layer, which is everywhere, and it's invisible for us humans, but it's there for the robots, for the machine vision and everything, and it naturally helps to keep things in sync. So that's maybe the major application. And I don't see any, how to say, easier or better way to actually achieve that without embedding this kind of cost into the environment. Does it answer your question, or?
I wonder, like, some specific industries, maybe like medicine, for example, I guess that's the application, or internet business, or...
Well, it's really, there are so many applications, potential applications. So, elderly people, they have to take their medicine on a regular basis, right? So how are you going to track this process? Somebody is taking a pill. So can you track the pill? Or if maybe you embed something like some RFID tag or something, like what's in the credit cards, but that's not good to swallow, right? If it's something like optical, digital there, it may work. So many applications, hard to say. We did something with real products, so they're books. They're books with digitally embedded codes, and they're also catalogs. So some companies, they sell products. Or go to IKEA. They have a shop here in Sofia, I think. Oh, no, not here, in Sofia, right? And their catalog, it's digitally enhanced in a certain way. So you can see the furniture popping up from the catalog on your screen. And you can see the furniture from different directions by changing the orientation of your screen in respect to the catalog. So this one really very practical application. And I think it's available in this year's catalog too. It was for the last year. So there are many. Yes. Any other questions? Yes, go ahead.
Don't you think that with the development of augmented reality, especially with applications such as Google Glass, the public will start resisting this, for example, because of concerns about privacy, because like 2 days ago I watched a video about developing facial recognition software for Google Glass, and everyone with Google Glass can immediately see sensitive personal information about everyone that's in their site, so yeah, especially like bank information. So don't you think that most people would oppose the advent of such technologies?
Well, absolutely. I mean, the officer in the middle of one of the slides, you know, with all this equipment, outfit, that's scary. I mean, yes, privacy concerns, they are there, and people are thinking about it. And I don't know how they should be addressed, but technology is taking us to somewhere we're definitely not fully prepared to go yet, I believe. Yes?
Okay, let's
Thank you very much.
This program is brought to you by AUBGTalks. For more, please visit us at aubg.edu/talks.